Good evening again. Welcome everyone to this evening's event, which is a webinar on menopause and weight loss. I'm Dr. Etunu Johnson-Sogbetun, also known as Dr. Show. And I'm so delighted to be having this really, really important conversation. We know that in the menopause, weight is something that a lot of people struggle with. And there's just not enough information about this particular issue and how we can manage it. But it has such immense impact on our future health because being overweight is associated with so many health problems, from high blood pressure to diabetes to stroke to heart disease to various different cancers. And the list just goes on and on. But being overweight can also impact our mental health. So it's such a wide ranging issue. And so it was really important to me that I shared on this issue. And this is why we're having this webinar tonight. So what's going to happen is we're going to have a talk and I will be talking for about 30 minutes. And then we're going to have questions. And in the question session, I would be really looking for you to open up and ask questions that you may have around this issue, menopause, weight management, and anything in between. I'm here to support you and answer your questions on this journey. So as I said, we're recording this bit, which is the talk, and then we'll stop recording for the question and answer session, just so that people can feel happy to share. So we're going to start the talk now. Just checking you can all see my screen. It tells me that you can, but give a thumbs up if you can see it, just so that I know that you can, which is great. Thank you. So a little bit about me. So some of you may know who I am already. For those of you who don't, I'm Etunu, or Dr. Etunu Johnson-Sogbetun. I'm a general practitioner, which is I know that not everyone in the session is based in the UK. So that's a consultant in family medicine. And I specialize in women's health, sexual and reproductive health, and the menopause. I'm a member of the British Menopause Society. I'm just in the process of completing my advanced certificate in menopause care. And I also I'm a member of the Primary Care Women Health Society, and I sit on the committee there. I'm also EDI lead for the Royal College of GPs Northwest London Faculty Board. I'm also a GP tutor and examiner at Queen Mary's University of London Medical School. But I'm also a Black woman, and I've had my own share of health experiences. And that gives me a lens to be able to support patients, because I've actually been there. I've had my own women's health struggles. So another thing that I'm really passionate about is health equity. And that's trying to make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity to the best care and the best health possible. Because yes, we all have different health backgrounds, but we want to make sure that everybody has the best chance to live their best lives. So that's a little bit about me. So we're going to start with the very basics. What is menopause? So menopause is a unique phase in every woman's life, which brings both challenges and new experiences. And actually, many women find that they're managing their weight is more challenging. And this is due to both hormonal and metabolic shifts. And we're going to be talking about this more as we continue. So today is all about taking a closer look at the relationship between menopause and weight. And the goal is to actually give you simple, sustainable, and effective strategies to help you feel good be in your best health, and also, if that's important to you, look your best. So what is menopause? It's that stage in a woman's life where you haven't had a period for 12 consecutive months. It usually occurs between the ages of 45 and 55. We know that the average age for Caucasian women is around 51. For Black women, it's around 48. And for Southeast Asian women, it's around 46. So it does vary depending on our ethnic background. And actually, for women from the Far East, so China, Japan, it can even be later. It can be significantly later than 51. So it does change according to where we are in the world. But what is factual is that if you are a woman, you will come to a point where your periods stop. Now, the transition in that going from your normal regular period cycles to the menopause is known as perimenopause. And that is very much highlighted by your hormones going absolutely crazy. And we're going to show you an image of that in a minute. Now, what happens that causes the menopause? Your ovaries, which are where your eggs are produced and which also produces the bulk of your estrogen and progesterone, begins to, as the eggs diminish, as you progress in life and you get older, begins to decline. And then that leads to lower estrogen and various symptoms. So what are those symptoms? Many of you would have heard. So perimenopause, you're going to have irregular periods. Everyone knows about the hot flushes, but remember, 20% of women will not get hot flushes. So if you don't have hot flushes, don't mean you're not in perimenopause or menopause. Women may get, sometimes women, instead of feeling really hot, may feel really cold. So women can get chills because there's a problem with the estrogen impacts temperature regulation in our brains. Night sweats, sleep problems, headaches, joint aches, joint pains, mood changes, brain fog and memory problems, thinning hair, dry skin, and of course, weight gain and slower metabolism. Now, what are the hormonal changes? So the estrogen drops, and estrogen is basically the main hormone that impacts menopause. So it drops, and that brings the symptoms that we describe, because estrogen is a full body hormone. So a lot of people think of it as a reproductive hormone, but actually there's estrogen receptors all over our body, in our skin, in our brains, in our vaginas, obviously, but it's literally the estrogen receptors in our brains that affect our memory, our mood, temperature regulation, our libido, and our interest in sex. So all of these things, when the estrogen drops, are affected. And that's why, your skin gets drier, because the estrogen receptors in the skin are also affected. Now, progesterone also declines, and that can impact sleep, because progesterone actually can help us feel calm, which is why for those taking HRT and you have the eutrogestin at night, it can make you feel sleepy. Testosterone also reduces, but remember, it's not just the ovaries that produce testosterone. The adrenal glands also produce testosterone. So the drop in testosterone is not always as marked. So every menopausal woman doesn't necessarily need testosterone. I think that's important to remember, but for some women, that drop is really dramatic. And of course, for women who have a surgical menopause, so their ovaries are completely removed, then that can be a very dramatic drop in testosterone. And then we also get cortisol and insulin shift. As stress levels rise, it slows down metabolism, increasing insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is not our friend because of all the not very nice things it does to our bodies. And cortisol, as you know, drives all this really very bad changes in the body in terms of, especially around the abdomen, weight gain around the abdomen. Now, the menopause transition. So you can see in our reproductive years, you've got your estrogen, which goes up and down as you go through your cycles. And I was just telling you what happens in perimenopause. It goes absolutely crazy. And now you can look at that picture and you can see why it can be very difficult to do a blood test. in perimenopause to tell you whether you're perimenopausal. Because if you take the blood test somewhere here in the middle, it could look exactly like if you were in your reproductive years. It's only if you manage to capture it when it's low that it would then indicate to you that you may be perimenopausal. And then you could repeat it, and then it could be up here. And then it's like, oh, actually, am I still perimenopausal? Which is why blood tests can be not so educative in the diagnosis, although we do recommend that in women under the age of 45 getting perimenopausal symptoms, it's worth doing a blood test. Now, post-menopause, you can see that the estrogen drops dramatically. Now, what is hormone replacement therapy? So we're only going to talk about this briefly as part of our introduction because it's not the nub of our talk. But we have a really extensive talk on our YouTube channel where we've really broken down HRT. So if you're interested, and we have articles on our website and things. So if you're interested, you can find out more. And also if you want to ask during the question and answer, please feel free to ask. So because the main cause of the perimenopause and menopausal symptoms is estrogen deficiency, HRT is estrogen replacement. And the estrogen that we mostly use now is estradiol, which is natural and body identical, derived from yams. We are no longer using pregnant horse urine estrogen, which is what used to be used for HRT and was associated with a lot of side effects. Now, this estrogen that we use in most modern HRT is really the same as our body produces. And you can have it as a tablet, a patch, a gel, or a spray. And that systemic means it goes all over your body. And, you know, when you have it via the skin, the risk of blood clots is virtually eliminated. So it's very safe treatment. The risk of breast cancer is so small. It's like 5 to 10 in 1,000 women. So 0.5% additional risk on top of your background risk. So the only reason why you would be concerned is if your background risk of breast cancer is already very high and you don't want to add on to that risk. But for most women, the benefits of HRT far outweigh the risk. Now, there's vaginal estrogen, which is used for primarily genitourinary syndrome of the menopause, which is a condition that causes the vagina and the urinary tract to be affected by low estrogen, causing vaginal dryness, urinary incontinence, urinary tract infections, urinary frequency, accidents. And women don't often talk about this, but it can be deeply, deeply upsetting. But there is treatment, and vaginal estrogen can be really helpful for that. Now, for women who have a womb, you have to have estrogen and progesterone, because the progesterone is to counteract the effect of estrogen on the womb lining, because the estrogen would make the womb lining grow. So progesterone stops that. Obviously, if you don't have a womb, you don't need progesterone. And the best option for this, in my opinion, is Mirena, particularly for women who are perimenopausal, because the Mirena can act as a contraception. But if you don't want the Mirena, then there are other tablet options for the progesterone. And we now have a body identical progesterone called Utrogestan, which is made from soy. And then testosterone can be part of HRT. Generally, according to the BMS, we should be using it to address low sex drive alongside other treatments for low sex drive. But there is anecdotal evidence that improves energy. Women feel that they're sharper on it. So the evidence is not quite as robust. There is some new evidence coming out that it may have this impact, but it's still being researched. Okay, so now let's talk about weight gain in menopause. I'm not sure what's happened to the screen. I think someone's written on the screen. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's happened. Sorry if you're writing on this screen. Do you mind not doing that? Thank you. So women typically gain around 1.5 kilograms each year during perimenopause. So they could have gained up to 10 kilograms by the start of menopause. And this is data from the SWAN study, which is a very large study that looked at women and the menopause. Now, the annoying thing about this weight is that it goes into the worst place. It settles in the abdominal area and upper body. Now, estrogen has been responsible for that lovely curve that many of us women have. But unfortunately, as we lose estrogen, what happens? We get more apple shaped and there's more fat around our belly. Now, belly fat is visceral fat is really not great for us because it increases risk of all sorts of health problems, including heart disease, including problems with problems with fatty liver disease, so many different medical problems, increases risk of diabetes, and all the sort of complications of that. Now, as estrogen levels decrease, this visceral fat increases. So the main points: lower estrogen slows metabolism. As estrogen levels drop, the body's ability to regulate that fat distribution in what I was describing, that sort of natural female curve, is reduced. And also our ability to burn calories is reduced. So you might be like, I haven't changed anything. Why am I gaining weight? Well, that's why. And then there's also hormonal shifts and insulin resistance. I mentioned insulin resistance at the beginning because menopausal changes can make the body less sensitive to insulin, and that encourages fat storage, making it harder to lose weight. And then, of course, you get sarcopenia, which is another word for saying declining muscle mass. So estrogen helps us maintain our muscles. As we get older in the menopause, we start to lose muscle mass, and that lowers our resting metabolic rate. And that causes calories to be stored as fat more easily. Now, again, with menopause, we often have the night sweats, hot flushes, mood swings, and of course, sleep disruption, which can then increase stress levels and lead to cravings or emotional eating. Now, extra weight strains the heart and can increase blood pressure and cholesterol. The deep abdominal fat, as I talked about, raises insulin resistance, increasing the risk of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, fatty liver disease. The list goes on. Added pounds intensify pressure on the joints, worsening pain and stiffness, because obviously joint pains and aches are already a symptom of low estrogen, and it can just get worse. And then bone density is declining, which then makes this even worse. And then the weight gain can then cause in itself disrupted sleep and just cause a stressful cycle of symptoms. So it can become a vicious circle. Now, I think it's really important. I mean, those of you who have been following me for a while will know that I'm always banging on about the mental load. And what is the mental load? It's the ongoing mental cognitive effort that women disproportionately carry of daily tasks, decisions, emotional responsibilities. And this can intensify during the menopause. Why? Because many of us in menopausal age are the squeezed middle. We are often having still, young or teenage children who still need our support. Many of us are also supporting elderly relatives. And now, as most of us are in the workforce, working full-time, having all of those, and we still also need to look after ourselves and our own health. It's just too much. And then there's, of course, the 24-hour news cycle, social media, emails constantly throughout the day, just the mobile phone adding so much more to that mental load. And it just is so much. Now, hormonal changes, mood swings, caregiving roles, work demands, they all converge in menopause, heightening stress levels and leaving less energy for self-care. If you can relate, raise a hand, right? The stress and fatigue from the heavy mental load can then lead to comfort eating. Right? So for many of us, when we were young, if you were upset, someone was like, okay, have a sweet or have some chocolate or have a piece of cake. So for us, we think, I don't feel good. Food is the answer. And that's what we mean by comfort eating. Disrupted sleep, inconsistent exercise, because a lot of people just don't have the time. All these factors undermine weight management. Now, successfully losing weight or building healthy habits can actually boost self-esteem. Sorry. Can actually boost self-esteem and reduce stress, creating a more positive mindset. And that's really important. So now let's start with nutrition. Now, it's really important that we realize that all food groups are necessary, but it's about how we incorporate those food groups. Please don't starve yourself. It doesn't work and it's not sustainable. Protein is really important because it supports your muscle mass, it boosts your metabolism, and we already talked about your metabolism dropping during the menopause, and it keeps you full for longer. So lean meat, so white meats, chicken, fish, eggs, dairy if you can tolerate it. I know some people are a bit sensitive to dairy in adult life. Beans, tofu, legumes, lentils, all this, chickpeas, really good sources of protein. Try and have a varied sources of protein in your meals. Healthy fats matter. Avocado, salmon, nuts, seeds, olive oil. Omega-3 can reduce inflammation and support brain and heart health. Now, also fiber. Fiber is so important for your digestion. It helps balance blood sugar. It helps support your hormonal health. So whole grains. Eat food as grains as natural as possible. So brown rice, brown bread, brown pasta as much as possible. Opt for whole grains, beans, fruits, and vegetables. Choose, and leading on to that, choose the complex fiber-rich carbohydrates because they're really important to help keep energy levels stable. But be careful with portion control. You don't really want to eat more carbohydrates than a fist size in a meal, but you want to make sure that you do have some carbohydrates because they keep you fuller for longer and they prevent blood sugar spikes. But of course, if you're eating simple carbohydrates like sugar, white rice, white bread, it just gives you spikes and it makes you feel hungry. So that's why choose smart carbs. Stay hydrated, please. Drink fluid, water, herbal teas, water-rich foods like cucumbers and berries. Now, also be careful with caffeine. Be careful with caffeine because caffeine can interrupt your sleep and make you feel anxious and worsen lots of symptoms. So try and stick to healthy drinks, water as much as possible, but you can have some fruit teas. Those can be really good as well. And there's this whole concept of eat the rainbow. Those of you who followed me know I borrowed this statement, but I share it because I love it. Try and make your foods as colorful as possible because all these micronutrients are so important for your development and for your nutrition and for your hormone management. And they're packed full with antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals. Okay, so I talked about caffeine. Please don't smoke. If you are, try and get help to stop because it just makes everything worse, worsens the symptoms, worsens your sleep and your heart disease risk and bone loss, bone density loss, excessive alcohol, so moderate alcohol, so no more than 14 units a week, because alcohol is just empty calories, right? It's just empty calories. I mean, I love my glass of champagne as much as anyone, but literally, I need to be very, very cautious with. So I try to think no more than one glass of wine. That's what I put as a limit on myself, except during holiday seasons, to just be really careful. And I try not to drink every day. In fact, a lot of the time, outside of holiday seasons, or when I'm going out for an event, I try not to drink at home because all of these things, it's empty calories, it disrupts sleep, and it increases menopause-related weight gain. So you need to decide for yourself what works for your body, but really be careful with alcohol because that's one place where the calories add up and you might not even realize. Now, again, I'm all about balance, not restriction. Menopause is not the time for extreme diets because it just doesn't work and it makes all of the insulin resistance cravings worse. So don't cut out any food group. Focus on quality food, balance, and very importantly, portion sizes. And then listen to your body. Menopause changes how your body responds to food. So tune in. Tune into your body. Listen to the cues. Don't listen to the emotions of, oh, I just want to eat. Listen to actually, am I hungry or am I full? And choose foods that will give you energy rather than make you sluggish. I find myself just craving fruits and vegetables these days because I know how they make me feel versus the foods that when I eat them, I have a pleasure for a moment, but actually they make me feel tired and sluggish afterwards. And then we come on to movement. Increased physical activity. I'm not trying to put more pressure on women because we already have so much pressure. But this is one way of actually reducing the mental load by moving more and sitting less. Take the stairs, walk your dog if you've got one. Just, walk to the station, walk in your local community. Use Lifting weights is so important in the menopause, some weight resistance. So even if it's just a dumbbell that you have at home, you watch a video on YouTube, and there's some fantastic videos that you can watch. There's even some done to all sorts of different music. There's even some done to Afro beats. There's so many great people doing things that are free online that you can watch. And you can just do these gentle exercises, but increasing the resistance. Stay flexible, gentle stretches, Pilates, yoga. They can really help reduce stiffness and support joint mobility. And also, please do time movement with fun. Dance, swim, cycle. I have a friend who, what she does for her physical activities, she puts on some Nigerian gospel music because that's her favorite music, and she dances for 20 minutes. And that's her exercise, and she loves it. She ties it. She's a person of faith. She ties it with her worship, and she's doing her movement, and she loves it. So again, you can find innovative ways to do your movement. Go out with friends because that motivation, play tennis with your friends or golf or whatever you enjoy, and then build up gradually. If you're someone who doesn't do any movement, don't put pressure on yourself. Rome wasn't built in a day, as they say. So start slow and then just increase slowly as you get stronger and more confident. Now, we're going to talk about medications that support weight management. Now, if diet and exercise aren't helping as much as before, and for a lot of women, that's the case, it might be time to discuss additional medical options with a healthcare provider. And this is particularly true if you start getting any complications of being overweight. So high blood pressure, high blood sugar, so pre-diabetes or diabetes, or if you start getting joint aches and pains, you want to nip these things in the bud. So medications like GLP-1 receptor agonists, and we're going to be talking about them in a minute, could be options to consider alongside possible hormone therapy to help with your weight and menopausal symptoms. So a healthcare professional can guide you through the pros and cons of the medications. Please don't be buying things online. Right? You have no idea what you're doing. You need to see someone who knows about these medications and who can give you the right advice. So we're going to be talking about some of the treatment options. So the first one I'll talk about is orlistat, which is one of the older medications that was on the market. it's not that effective. It just, because really what it's trying to do is get rid of fat in the diet. And actually, not that many people are eating high fat diets. A lot of the time, the weight gain or the is coming from other food groups, particularly carbohydrates. So it offers only a modest weight loss compared to some of the newer treatments, which we're going to be talking about. And because it's getting rid of fats in the diet, your stools become really unpleasant and oily. So those are the side effects. And you can then get some you have the risk of getting some nutritional deficiencies of fat soluble vitamins. So you may then need vitamin supplementation if you're using it for the long term. So it's worth trying, but they're now far more effective treatments. Which brings me to the one that I think almost everyone would have heard of, Oze, as they call it, Ozempic. But actually, the name Ozempic is the name of the treatment for diabetes. The drug is called semaglutide. Ozempic is actually the formal name for the diabetes treatment. So it's a treatment for patients with diabetes. And Wegovy is the name for the obesity treatment, which is the treatment for being overweight. So it's a GLP-1 agonist. So it mimics this hormone called GLP-1, which slows down stomach emptying and makes you feel fuller for longer. So it's typically injected once a week, and you gradually increase the dose. And in trials, it achieves about 15% weight loss over 68 weeks. And it works best when paired with diet and exercise. Now, you have to be aware of the side effects. So a lot of people will get gastrointestinal side effects like nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, abdominal pain. This is all common because it's actually making you feel fuller for longer. But actually, quite a lot of people don't have any side effects at all. As you can see, the majority of people have no side effects. It's really important to know about the rare stuff. Gallbladder problems, pancreatitis, which is really important because that's a rare side effect that can be that can impact your health. So if you get severe abdominal pain, you need to go, and you're on one of these medications, you need to go to hospital to get checked to make sure it's not pancreatitis. And of course, if you're not drinking enough, it can cause you to get dehydrated because you need to be drinking really well when you're on these medications. Generally speaking, most of the stomach side effects gradually lessen over time. And that's why we say we start low and build up. And this is why you need to go and see a proper professional rather than, because if you are using these medications under guidance, they can be really effective. Now, that brings me to tirzepatide, Mounjaro, as they call it. So this has both the GLP-1 agonist, but it also has something called GIP. So it's got two things in it to boost fullness. So it's more, well, the clinical trials show a higher percentage of weight loss than Wegovy. And again, it's also given once a week. Again, similar gradual dosage. As I say, it can offer superior weight loss, but it doesn't work for everyone. Some people find actually Wegovy works better for me. So again, this is why you need to see someone who knows about these medications. The side effects are really, really similar. And as I say, the gallbladder issues, note the pancreatitis as well, which is one of the rarer side effects that's really important. Now, there's all this talk about thyroid cancer. Now, actually, the thyroid cancer in both Mounjaro and semaglutide and Wegovy have only been seen in animal studies. It hasn't actually been noted in human studies, but they have to mention it. So it's not really something to be significantly worried about. But of course, if you start feeling any growth in your thyroid, then you need to report it. But as I say, it hasn't been seen in human study, it was only noted in the animal studies. So if you're thinking about medication, what do you need to do? You need to get a thorough health check to see if you're a good candidate and don't have any contraindications to the medication. You need to develop a plan so you need to, with a healthcare professional, you have to have the right plan. It has to be biopsychosocial based on your individual needs. And you need to have checkups to see how we need to adjust, because this is not just like a one size fits all, go away with your medication. You have to have someone who knows what they're doing. And you combine the medication with nutritional advice and behavior support for lasting change. And so you can work with your healthcare team to understand the benefits and risks to ensure your plan is safe and effective. Now, it would be completely remiss of me if I didn't talk about the psychological approach. As I mentioned before, a huge part of many of us as weight journey is comfort eating and emotional eating. So we need to have more mindful eating, recognizing emotional eating triggers, controlling cravings, and building a healthier relationship with food. And sometimes you need therapy to help break that sort of negative self-identity, body image issues, and weight loss barriers. Because sometimes there's been trauma and all sorts of things that actually trigger you towards eating emotionally. And so when you're stressed, it's the first thing you reach for. I mean, I know that I've struggled with that connection myself. So recently I've tried to create new pathways in my brain to think, okay, I'm stressed, rather than reaching for a burger or something, then maybe I go for a walk. Or now I have a new favorite fruit, which is an orange. I have that instead. So again, it's kind of retraining your mind. The walk thing is so helpful for me. Just go outside. And by the time I've walked, I just come back. Even if it's a 5-10 minute walk, I feel better. So you need to find what works for you and reduce your stress through meditation, deep breathing, journaling, so many different ways, which can prevent cortisol-related weight gain. And of course, support from friends, from family, and you can also pay for support with coaching, for accountability and sustained improvement. Now, sleep is so important, so important. Those of you that don't prioritize sleep, it's impacting your health in so many ways. And I know it's difficult because there's so many pressures on us, but you really want to try and get 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep. And it helps balance the hunger hormones. It supports stable blood sugar levels and actually may even enhance the body's ability to burn fat. And if you're well rested, you're less likely to crave sugary, high fat foods. And it means better stamina so you can actually be more effective in your physical activity. And sufficient rest actually helps reduce the stress hormone, which is linked to fat storage. So your sleep is your beauty sleep. Remember that. And it's also good for your physical and mental health. Right. So now talking about the mental load, I'm going to always really try and encourage you to honor your capacity. Now, I always say this, that there's two important concepts, capability and capacity. As women, so many of us are incredibly capable. We, superwoman is woman. Like, what women are so capable of, despite so much adversity, it blows the mind. But actually, we've got to remember that Superwoman is a mythical character. We are but flesh and blood. And what reminds us of that is capacity. Capacity is how much you're actually able to do. What are your limits? And each of us will have a different capacity, and capacity changes over time. Often within the menopause, capacity shrinks because of all these symptoms, that women are dealing with, and your body is changing. So don't push yourself beyond what feels manageable. You can achieve your potential by honoring your capacity. So we talk about, and this was taught to me by a fantastic occupational therapist called Beverly Knopps, about elimination, which is removing what's not important. Identify things that don't add value and let them go. And that brings me to the glass and rubber ball analogy. So just imagine everything you're holding are balls. Some are glass and some are rubber. If you drop a rubber ball, they'll bounce back, right? So you could be like, you know what, I really want to do this charity I really want to do this volunteer work. But it could be a rubber ball. If you drop it, it could come back in a year, 2 years when you have more capacity. But glass balls, if they drop, they shatter, and it's incredibly difficult to put them together. So your health is a glass ball. Your relationship with your children, with your family, with your friends, those are glass balls. And so you want to make sure that you focus on your glass balls and as needed, let rubber balls go. Now, that also brings me to the next. So elimination, delegation. So you don't have to do everything by yourself. So delegate tasks, whether it's sharing the mental load with the partner, sharing stuff with your children, friends, family, colleagues, or even as necessary, paying for help when needed. And then finally, although it's not on this slide, it's facilitation. There's so many things that can help you in modern life make your life more efficient, whether it's delivery, whether it's AI, all these things that can make your life more efficient. So maximize that. And then remember, strategies to manage the mental load. I talked about walking and movement and spending time in nature. So important. Nature is restorative. It can actually lower cortisol levels and help regulate emotions. So try and spend some time outdoors every day. Don't just be cooped up indoors all the time. It's so bad for your physical and mental health, and it makes you feel stressed, and that increases your cravings for food. As I said, movement, just walking, friends and family support. Remember to find joy in life, in the small things. Enjoy, take time to enjoy. And actually, if you find other things that you enjoy, you take pleasure in the little things in life, whether it be, sometimes I'm just listening to an audiobook and I find so much joy, or watching. I enjoy history documentaries. I got that from my father. Watching it, but it'll be different for you, whatever you enjoy. Some people it's, Love Island, good for you. What you enjoy, find joy in the small things, and you're less likely to rely on just food for comfort. Find healthy hobbies, whether it's gardening or, drawing and painting, so many different things, reading a book, listening to music, so many different things can enrich our lives. Right. So it's really important to manage the mental load with weight loss, because it makes it more achievable. If your mental load is too heavy, all that I'm talking about, you won't really be able to do it because you would feel too overwhelmed. So a really big part of the weight loss strategy is actually thinking, am I doing too much? Right. So that brings me to the end of my talk. And I just wanted to say that this month is International Women's Day. So we know that so many people need help with their, symptoms and with their women's health, and they don't have time to focus on it. So we've brought out this long weekend, the last weekend in March of International Women's Month, where we're having our clinics on the 28th, where we're focusing on our Lagos clinic, which is online only. On the 29th, we're going to be in St. Albans, which is in person and online. So if you want to book in online, you can. And on the 31st, we're going to be in Harley Street, in our clinic in Harley Street, which you can book in person and online as well. And to accelerate your action for help, we're offering 25% off all appointments booked during this weekend in celebration of International Women's Day and month. So the QR codes are on there if you wanted to just get the information on how you can book. So additionally, we're having another completely free webinar. It's going to be called Glow Up, and the focus is going to be on women's health, skincare, which, anti-aging, or let's not even say anti-aging, it's aging gracefully, and confidence, And we're going to be joined by I'm going to be joined by two fantastic speakers. One of them is Kelly Turner House. She's an aesthetic nurse practitioner. She knows so much about skincare and wellness. And Dr. Zara Nortley, I actually went to school. She was at King's, I was at UCL. When she was doing her dentistry, she's has two massive clinics in both the north and south of the UK. She's Ghanaian by background. She has such experience about skincare for people, for women of color, and just a fantastic speaker. It's going to be a really great session.